All right, here we go, boys. See how it goes. It begins. All right, 2024's Adventure Palooza Southwest Track started in Cassville, Missouri this year. We kicked off our ride at 7 a.m. from L&L Fuel. Aaron and I had already ridden just over an hour to get to Cassville and meet up with our friends Jerry and Chase. Now, along the entire track, there's a geocaching competition utilizing the Goose Chase app. You can find some cool landmarks, solve some riddles, take some cool, fun team photos that you'll be able to share with the group at the end of the ride. Our intent was to complete as many of these as possible, but unfortunately, with our looming struggles ahead, we missed out on a good deal of this kind of competition and ultimately kind of abandoned it after day one. In our initial planning, we were looking at the track and hoping to really put in about at least 230 to 300 miles on day one. Spoiler alert, we didn't get anywhere close. The journey kicked off with some two-lane highway taking us down into the Roaring River State Park just outside of Seligman, Missouri. There's a really cool trout fish hatchery here. It's a cool place to come, camp, fish. They have primitive campsites, all kinds of cool stuff, but it's a really neat place. On the far end of the park behind the fish hatchery is where our first off-road section began. There for a second I felt like I was going to an area we didn't belong. This is what it shows on the track. It doesn't say anything about entering it here. A little on the rocky side. Are we going first?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, it gets a little wild up here. Everybody through? Mud puddles. Yeah, how did they find all this stuff? I think this might be where they say... Okay, I think this is it. I think we're good. They may have wanted us to enter that creek bed right there. I'm not sure. I think I'm gonna pass that up. Do you guys want to enter the creek bed here? It looks okay. Let me know what you think. I don't know if it's up this way or what. You guys are all good? Big mud puddle. Big bump. This initial off-road section was what I expected most of the ride to be, with the exception of some, on pavement and off pavement sections like dirt road sections. I think that's mostly what it would have been had we not had some of the turnoffs that we had that we'll share up ahead. Aaron had an early dump and some loose gravel that required us to have some shift lever manipulation to get us back on the road. Just a minor inconvenience, really. Careful, I can't see jack when the sun's in my eyes. After the section behind Roaring River, we had about 60 miles of 50-50 dirt road and pavement that led us to a section of Mark Twain National Forest about 15 miles due east of Branson, Missouri. This section is called the Glade Top Trail section. We entered in that section of Mark Twain, and we actually took the first big bike work around here I'll show on the map. We actually intended to do all the big bike workarounds due to having some riders who didn't really have a lot of off-road riding experience in our group. My son and Jerry's son Chase hadn't had a ton of off-road experience, so we were going to kind of take it pretty light. However, I took a wrong turn. It was a navigational error on my part, along with some weird GPS map overlay issue. I missed the second big bike turnoff and ended up taking one of the more difficult trail sections for this day. We can take it a little ways and see what it looks like. Careful up here.
How you guys doing?
Doing great, man. How are you?
I'm a little bit lost.
These next 10 or 12 miles were really some of the toughest I've ridden since getting back on a bike this year.
I'm gonna try to go
It
up
really
here,
wasn't due to the
maybe.
terrain so much as it was just having a lot of gear packed on the bike. I was really overpacked, and I'll talk about that in a kind of a wrap-up video about our experience with Adventure Palooza. I just had a lot of trouble actually handling the rockier steep sections. Anytime my front wheel would kick out a little bit, I was dumping quite a bit. So I was struggling a little bit, but then the real trouble started. Here I'll show a clip of myself, and you can see the utter concern on my face. It's really a face of uncertainty and frustration. This was me just after my bike had died on the trail. I tried the key on, key off. The dash wouldn't even light up. And because it kind of died that way, I figured it was some sort of maybe connection issue. Maybe something was... wasn't connected just right. I was able to get it roll started and fired back up, and I was able to turn it off, turn it back on a couple more times. It seemed to be working fine, so I figured I had a short somewhere.
My battery made me nervous right there, that's for dang sure. Which way does it freaking go here? You guys all right? Need any tools or anything?
No, we're good.
Okay. What's that? Oh man, I did not bring any extra wire. Jerry, did you?
There's a bike right
Whoa. Okay.
We'll figure it out.
Okay. Yep. Yes. Aaron, you took the better route, didn't you, bud? Good job, buddy.
Unfortunately, about 2 or 3 miles into that trail section, my battery on the bike just dead, no voltage at all. Dash wouldn't light up, nothing would work. We tried everything. We checked all the fuses, all the connections. We even pulled the battery out of the T-dub and hooked it up to confirm it was just a dead battery. And we were able to determine that yes, it was just a dead battery, it wasn't a loose connection or anything like that. Unfortunately, though we could get it to jump start off the T-dub battery, it wouldn't stay running unless it stayed connected to the T-dub battery. And that battery was way too big to fit in the slot, and of course your cables to your battery are only as long as they need to be on a bike. The T-Dub was the only non-EFI bike that we had in the group that could have stayed running without a battery. So we had to kind of stew on what to do here for a little bit. After some thinking and consideration of our options, my buddy Jerry came up with the idea to use a Milwaukee 18-volt battery that I'd brought along to charge camera equipment while camping, and scavenge the wires off my USB power tap that I showed in the other video to stay connected to the circuit to keep the fuel injection and the ECU powered up. Now, this wasn't enough to start the motorcycle because the wires were too thin to carry that amperage, but it was enough to keep the bike powered on, prime the fuel injection. That allowed us to get it roll started, and we even in some tough sections had to jump it with a DeWalt battery that he had packed. So it worked out really well and got us back on the trail kind of consistently moving forward. And this took us about an hour and a half, 2 hours to kind of really get dialed in where we were finally moving along down the trail. Unfortunately, during the chaos and stress of this, I was really concerned about being broke down on day one. I was pretty bummed. I didn't really catch that much of being broke down and trying to fix it. I really wish I would have, because it was kind of a cool scenario that we had to solve and get out. Either way, we were back in business, and we finished out the rest of that 12-mile section. But by the end of this, man, I was wiped. I had to roll start my bike many times, and I was completely worn out.
Back on some what we might consider more manicured roads. My battery is dead in the water, and we have fallen over many times and had to jump start it. We are currently keeping the EFI running with a Milwaukee battery, and the wires underneath my ass are hot. So we're going to try to make our way to a town where we can find a battery. Bare minimum, get back on some pavement, make some more miles back to a town of some sort. That terrain that we just knocked out was the craziest stuff I've ever ridden, and I rode some crazy stuff when I was a kid. Yeah, I don't think we did the big bike workaround, but we freaking need to. Oh, I seriously underestimated how bad it would be.
This shot is us just kind of leaving the area, and I was pretty stoked to be to be out of there that evening, opposed to like next morning. We had thought of many strategies, maybe having my wife bring a battery to the nearest section of the trail that I could ride the T-Dub out and get the battery and come back. So once we got back on the road, we strolled in to Ava, Missouri, and headed to the local Walmart there to source a battery. The Milwaukee battery that we were using died just as we rolled up to the Walmart. I wasn't even in the parking lot yet, and my dash started to flicker, and then it just died completely. But we were close, so I pushed it up to the Walmart. We grabbed a battery, and we were able to get it swapped out. Bike ran fine. By that time, it was 8 o'clock. We'd had well over 12, 13 hours in the saddle. We were exhausted. We decided to hit the local Super 8 motel just to catch some Z's and maybe start fresh day two. We woke up day two. We had only cleared about 144 miles on day one, so we were way behind. It was about a 600-mile trip, so we need to make a lot of miles on day two. So unfortunately, we were looking at the weather. Hurricane Helene had really pushed up and was bringing a pretty much solid heavy downpour for the entire day two track. That's where we decided to call an audible, ride back west a little bit, stay out of the rain, track back north, then head back east. We made up about 290 miles on day 2. That was mostly just regular road riding. Nothing super exciting. We did see some good scenery. We stayed out of the rain, and we made up all the time and that we needed to, fortunately. We missed a lot of the good riding on day 2, I'm sure, as far as the adventure stuff goes. But that's just some stuff we'll maybe be able to catch next year. We landed in a really cool old German settlement town known for its wineries and breweries, named Hermann, Missouri, which sits right on the Missouri River. Though day 2 was somewhat of a bust, we got to ride motorcycles all day. We stayed out of the rain. We had some good laughs, had some good fun, ate some good food, and we ended up in this really little cool town that just really everyone thought was pretty cool. All right, tonight's accommodations, the Hermann Motel. We just got into town a little bit late, and it's a little bit cold and a little damp. It rained here all day, so we're going to hotel it tonight, and hopefully looks like the rain will be cleared out for tomorrow for our final night, and we'll be able to camp, so we should be good. We're all surviving. We're gonna go find some. We did promise ourselves, though, no matter what, when we got to Mexico for night 3, that we would indeed camp that night at least. So, if you watch this far, thank you. I hope that you guys consider coming to Adventure Palooza. We're going to be back next year for sure. Please like the video, comment, please subscribe. We'll cover days 3 and 4, as well as the camp and skills course at Adventure Palooza on next week's video. And we just really appreciate your support, and hope this gives some insight to what the trip is without giving too much away, so that it's still kind of surprise next year. I know they changed the track up a little bit, but again, thank you so much for watching. Join us next week for how we wrap up our trip.